We are creating this, I suppose, almost content strategy, this content plan for the next potentially 3, 6, 12, 18 months, so that our clients basically have a list of blog content that they can go away and write to target these keywords that hopefully will satisfy the intent of the searcher.
This is Time for Marketing, the marketing podcast that will tell you everything you've missed when you didn't attend the marketing conference. Hello and welcome to the Time for Marketing podcast, the podcast that tells you everything that you have missed when you didn't attend the marketing conference. As always, my name is Peter and I'm screaming hello from lovely Slovenia that is today for the first time this year covered in snow, and I'm a big fan of snow and very happy that we have it today or this year so early. Welcome to the podcast. We have an excellent guest today with us, but before I introduce you to our guest, you are, of course, very welcome to go and subscribe to this podcast in iTunes or Google Podcast or any other place where you like to listen and subscribe to podcasts. Even more interesting, even more important, if you would like to be a guest on this podcast, if you have had a presentation on any marketing conference, or if you are a marketer and you were on a marketing conference and you loved a presentation there, just visit the website timeformarketing.com and there's a contact forum and I would love to hear from you. And that's enough from my side. The guest that we're having today is Matthew Kay. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm very well. How are you? Did England get the first shipment of snow also?
Not quite yet. It's temperature's definitely dropped over the last few days, but hopefully it'll hold off for a few more weeks here because the country tends to grind to a halt when it snows. So.
Yeah, that was what happened this morning here in Ljubljana also. But yeah, that's, if it's snowing and I can sit in the car and look at these snowflakes, I don't mind it that much. Do you usually get a lot of snow in the part of the UK where you are?
Sometimes it's normally a big deluge, kind of around a week or two a year. I remember last year we got quite a lot of snow in January, so me and my brother ended up chucking on our skis and going up to the local woods where there's a mountain bike park. And skiing around there. So we did that for the first time because the snow was quite heavy. But not normally, to be honest.
Now, people in the UK are not big on skiing, are they?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of people like skiing. Obviously, we're just not. We do because we don't get enough snow. We have to go to your France, your Austrias, your Switzerland's and stuff to take advantage of it. But I try and get away at least once a year. I went twice earlier this year in January, which was good. So I'd like to be a better skier than I am.
All right. Interesting. I didn't know that. Matthew, you work at the company Aira and you are there the head of operations. Could you tell us a bit more? What does that mean? What do you do there? And of course, a bit about your company.
Sure. So Aira are a UK-based digital marketing agency. The company was founded in January of 2015 by Paddy Moogan and Matt Beswick. They originally started with 3 or 4 employees, and we're now at around about 34, 35. We cover... the way we try and describe ourselves is that we help businesses grow online as opposed to being a digital marketing agency, I suppose. But we cover everything from, technical SEO to content generation, link building, social media, paid social media, PPC, marketing automation, email marketing, all that sort of stuff. We are a Google Premier partner. We're also one of around about 50 agencies on the planet to be a Moz recommended agency, and we're a HubSpot certified partner as well. So that's an overview of Aira. In terms of my role here, we have a couple of teams. One which we call the content and PR team, who are much more focused on, getting coverage for their brand, for their clients, kind of increasing brand awareness, link building, link generation, that sort of stuff. And then we have the other team, which we refer to internally as the acquisition team. The acquisition team is the one that I oversee, and we are arguably the geekier side of the room. So we do the technical SEO, the marketing automation, the kind of PPC account optimization, social ads, that sort of stuff. So,
all right. So, would you call yourself a SEO guy, or I sort of felt that you are in SEO, but what you've told us now, I'm sort of a bit confused. Would you describe yourself that way?
Yeah. So, from my perspective, I'm probably more of an all-rounder than I am anything else, but if I had to pick something, it would be in more SEO and analytics. My background personally is I've spent 6 years in agencies, but touched across many kind of different digital marketing disciplines. So I've been there doing keyword research and doing tech audits and that sort of stuff, but I've also built kind of marketing automation workflows and drip campaigns. I've built PPC accounts. I've done kind of Google Analytics audits and implementations. I'm pretty broad, to be perfectly honest with you. But if I had to pick one, it would be kind of SEO and
All right. I've invited you because you were a speaker at the Digitalzone 2018 conference in Istanbul. Your presentation there was named Beyond Keywords, How to Create Content That Matches Your Buyer's Journey. 2 things about that. How did you enjoy Istanbul? And number 2, you had 144 slides. Isn't that a bit too much?
So Istanbul was great. The conference was really, really good, very well organized. If people are kind of over that way, they do run it annually. I would recommend that people go. Obviously, the chance to go to Istanbul as well and go to a city I've never been to before was cool too. In terms of having 144 slides, I go through them quite quickly. And I think what's quite important is that, particularly in this kind of digital age nowadays, and with things like SlideShare, I've been onto SlideShare and seen 15, 20, 30 slide long decks. And it's difficult to follow along. Whereas I think if you have more content in your slides, but not so many that you have too many points per slide, you give the ability for people to kind of follow that story along.
All right, then without further ado, I would like to give you the microphone. Present you with your time, your 5 minutes to sum up your presentation. How and where should we go beyond keywords?
Cool, good. I think the fundamental thing and the background to my presentation is that consumers have fundamentally changed. If we, as marketers and sales professionals and people that try to promote our goods and services, think about it, consumers are very, very different to how they were 10, 15, 20 plus years ago. In the kind of the old days, you might get a sales call from a sales rep and then get a brochure sent to you in the post. And then after you've done a little bit of research, you then might submit an inquiry or actually buy a product. Whereas today's consumer journey is much more complicated. If you think about the last time you bought an item online, you might have done a Google search or done several, viewed a website page, then seen a social media advertisement. You might have then revisited the website. You might have downloaded an ebook or a podcast. Or a white paper, watched a webinar, then you might get sign up to a company's email address list. You might get a couple of emails, then visit the service page or product page, and then actually submit an inquiry or buy something. So this actual journey has got not more complicated, but there's many more touch points than there were previously, and a lot of data out there backs this up. And a couple of stats I put in my slides was around 94% of B2B buyers research online purchase decisions, and one stat from Google was that a particular user's car buying journey included over 900 digital interactions over a 3-month period. So what this means is that the buyer's journey, or the way that we purchase products or services, has evolved. And the buyer's journey, or at least the methodology that we look towards, is this process of, doesn't matter what product you buy, everyone goes through this process, and you start at the awareness stage where you have you're starting to get symptoms of a problem or an opportunity, but you don't know what that is yet. And at the consideration stage, you then you understand what this actual problem is, and you're starting to look for solutions. And then in the decision stage, you've decided your solution, and you now need to choose a service provider or an actual vendor to carry out your particular solution of choice. The example I often give is when you buy a holiday. Okay, so you don't start off, or not always, you start off with I'm going to buy a holiday, or you're going to travel to Sicily, or travel to America, or travel to wherever. Quite often you start with I'm a little bit stressed out and I could do with a break. That's your awareness stage. In the consideration stage, you're then saying, right, in order to become a little bit less stressed, then I need a holiday. So then that's your consideration stage. You actually know what it is. And in your decision stage, you're saying, well, do I want a villa holiday? Do I want a beach break? Do I want to go skiing? All these sorts of things, okay? And quite often companies and organizations focus too much at the decision stage. And we forget about the consumers who are not ready to buy. And there's a really interesting stat from HubSpot, which is 96% of website visitors are not actually in the mood to buy. They're not ready. And what this means is that our keyword research, our content generation process, needs to consider those users further up the funnel, not at the decision stage. Now, I should say that if you have limited time and resource, you should definitely focus on the decision stage, but we shouldn't ignore those people who are not yet ready to engage in any sales conversations. So we need to fundamentally change the process, and there's a couple of ways that we've done this over at Aira. The first one, and I think most people will be familiar with this, is moving from keywords to topics. Okay, so what we've done at Aira is we've adopted HubSpot's topic cluster model, and if you're not familiar with that, HubSpot's topic cluster model is where you have a pillar page which typically targets a short tail key term or phrase that goes really, really in depth across a topic in itself. Whereas you then have what they refer to as cluster pages, which focus on subtopics, and they tend to be the long tail keywords. But the idea is that all of these pieces of cluster content that sit externally away from your pillar page all internally link back to your pillar page, and your pillar page links out to your subtopics. And the idea is that if you get one link into these cluster pages or the pillar page, the entire topic cluster gets a boost within the search engine results pages. What we've done at Aira is basically use that model and kind of take it a little bit further, and then start to apply stages of the buyer's journey to them. So we have what we call pillar pages, cluster pages, and target pages. Target pages tend to be more decision-based content. Okay, so where you're actually targeting people that are looking to buy. What we then do is we will ensure that a lot of our content targets or tries to target multiple keywords. Okay, so for example, if I'm the kind of older approach, if you were targeting, I don't know, key terms like inbound marketing or inbound marketing agency, inbound marketing company, inbound marketing services, a few years ago, you possibly could have made an argument for having an individual page for each one of those. Whereas nowadays, we have one page that targets all of those different phrases, because the actual intent of what the user's trying to get at is very, very similar. So the key thing is that our keyword research process needs to adapt to that. And the early stages of our process shouldn't really change too much. You get your list of C keywords, you chuck it into your favorite tools, Moz, Answer the Public, SEMrush, Google Ads, Keyword Planner, and then you start to expand that keyword list out. Once you've expanded that keyword list out, you then start to break them down to topics. And you want to try and make sure that you're obviously ignoring all those keywords based off kind of search volume and relevance. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to start thinking about, right, how can we break these keywords and phrases into topics? And also, how can we break these down into certain stages of the buyer's journey? So a good example is that, and this isn't black and white, but in the awareness stage, often people use key phrases like how to and troubleshoot and improve, optimize, at that early stage. Whereas in the decision stage, people use things like, test, reviews, pros and cons, buy, cost, that sort of stuff. And the idea is that we're trying to map these keywords to different stages of the buyer's journey. And when we're doing this, this enables us to start mapping our keywords that we've decided are appropriate for our client or for our websites to actually target, to then be mapped to existing website pages. So we are mapping our keywords to pages that they've already got on their site. And by doing this, we are creating our own content gap analysis, because we're basically saying we've got a list of all of these particular keywords that you can already target using pages you've got on your site. But also, here's a bunch of keywords you've not thought about, more often than not in the awareness and consideration stages of the buyer's journey. And we are creating this, I suppose, almost content strategy, this content plan for the next potentially 3, 6, 12, 18 months, so that our clients basically have a list of blog content that they can go away and write to target these keywords that hopefully will satisfy the intent of the searcher. The key thing about all of this is that we should, as SEOs, as marketers, should think beyond those people who are just ready to buy. If you think about that stat from HubSpot, 96% of people who visit your website are not ready to buy. That means only 4 people out of every 100 are actually interested then and there in purchasing your product. And we forget quite often about the other 96%. And I think that's the key kind of message and takeaway is to ensure that our keyword research process and our kind of keyword targeting and content creation should cater for that 96% of people. Because when you do that, and then you start to bring them to your website and answer the queries that they've got, then all your other marketing comes into play, like retargeting, lead generation, email marketing, all that sort of stuff.
Thank you very much. I have, of course, a couple of questions. I'm not sure if this is a question, but it's sort of how I think about SEO. Sure. We are more and more moving to the beginning of the purchase journey. And that, of course, means that SEO is getting more and more important, because companies are usually don't have the money to buy ads for those keywords. So, organic or free traffic, however we call that, is really important for those keywords. But on the other hand, it gets really competitive, because all of those different companies then start to compete for the similar keywords. If everyone, I know it's just an example, but still, if everyone believes that I'm stressed out, I need something, then people that sell the tourism will prepare content for that, and people that sell cars will prepare content for that, and people that sell computers will prepare content to that. So is SEO getting more complicated? We know it is, but is it still worth it, or is it slowly just too competitive and it's not really worth it anymore?
Sure. I mean, there's a few questions wrapped into there. I mean, is SEO worth it? Absolutely. Of course it is. It is arguably the best way to drive traffic on an ongoing basis for, in inverted commas, free. Okay. So obviously if you can get a keyword or phrase, particularly one with a decent amount of search volume on the first page, then that's a great way of driving additional traffic. Is it getting more competitive? Absolutely. And I think part of this keyword research process is and I haven't gone into detail on the reason why we exclude certain keywords or phrases, but you need to balance, how competitive that keyword is versus how valuable it is versus how much search volume there is. So we use a little Venn diagram, which is actually in my presentation, which is on my slide share, to kind of balance what we're targeting, because we need enough volume for it to be worthwhile to rank for the keyword. We need it not to be so competitive that it's going to be impossible to rank for that keyword. A great example I always use is that if a client comes to us who sells shoes, has an online shoe store, and they want to rank for Nike trainers, if they don't have a ridiculously big budget, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to get anywhere near that. And even if they do have a big budget, it's going to take them a hell of a long time to rank for that phrase. But then the last thing to consider is how important is that keyword to the business. If it's a really, really profitable keyword and there's not loads of search volume, you could argue and say, well, actually, we only need 1 or 2 customers out of this per year to make it worthwhile for us to go for it. So I think it's about hitting that sweet spot between those 3 things. If we come back to kind of your question around what happens if everyone starts going for the same keywords, I think fundamentally you have to adapt. You have to try and find those niches, try and find those low-hanging fruit, try and find a way to make your content slightly better, or to generate more links for you to try and outrank the people that are competing for those same phrases. But not only that, I think, and this is why we take quite a holistic approach to SEO, that we want to be better at qualifying people and converting those leads into customers, because SEO is obviously one way. You drive more traffic to a website. In theory, more comes out the bottom of the funnel. If you can increase the amount of people that are entering your lead generation funnel and making those users more qualified, that's another way to generate more leads, more customers, and in theory, more revenue.
And of course, that is the most important thing. When you have content that is on the beginning of the consumer's journey and you rank for that, there needs to be something on that web page where you will get the email or the Facebook Messenger agreement or whatever from the user. Don't just let that user bounce off the page, because then you've done some branding, but we all know what branding means, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that we talk about, and we refer to it a little bit like a leaky bucket. You're pouring water in at the top, but you've got holes that are letting these leads, these potential customers, fall away. We have to strike that balance between not putting so many pop-ups on a website that it turns people off. But if you can provide the right piece of content to that particular person, give it to them in the form of a download, or give them enough of an incentive to sign up to your marketing emails, to sign up to to give you that piece of information, when they are in the right frame of mind to buy a bit further down the line, you are increasing your opportunity to be the company that they think.
I really liked your process of selecting the keywords, and when at the end of the day you said you're more or less almost doing a content strategy where you produce all of those keywords. How often do you think that such a keyword research should be done? Because what I see very often with clients is that the keyword research is done once and then not really touched again, and I feel that's not really the best way how to do it, right?
Yeah, sure. So I agree with that sentiment. The honest answer is it depends. If you have the, I suppose, capacity to revisit it, if every 6 months or so, every 3 months or so, that is a sensible thing to do. The other thing is that if you've got finite time and resource, you should start with your most important keywords that are going to help your business grow. So you might want to pick your most profitable product, for example. Start there, spend some time on that, and then in 3 months' time, think about another topic or category. But should the process be revisited after a period of time? Yes. How often that should be will be determined based off how much keyword research you did at the start, how many keywords you actually have the ability to target.
I'm not sure if you mentioned that's on the podcast, but I've seen that you have that in the presentation. Of course, pick out the AdWords keywords that are already working for you and analyze them and add them to your organic keyword list, right?
Correct, exactly. So one of the things that we do as much as we possibly can, and this is only if a client has a Google Ads account, but you want to be looking at your Google Ads top converting keywords and then apply them to your keyword research, to your organic efforts. Because in theory, if you are converting keywords from a paid perspective, you've got to be doing something. If you can drive more through organic methods for those keywords that are performing quite well, that's going to increase your conversions from that perspective as well. So that's definitely something that should be integrated into that keyword research process, is what's working well on paid.
We are a bit long, but one more question. If a client has AdWords keywords running and they work well, and then they also start ranking on the, first 3 positions organic, should they stop advertising? Because this is a sentiment that clients always love to do, at least from what I've seen. Okay, we're ranking organically, we don't want any AdWords. Is that the right thing to do?
My honest answer is test it. The only way you'd ever know is you test it. So you track the amount of conversions you're getting based off the amount of traffic and impressions you're getting through Google Search Console and all that sort of stuff, and turn it off for 2 months. If you obviously notice a dramatic drop, don't after week 1, don't carry on the test. Turn it back on, but test it, because the honest answer is, I mean, it's quite a common question with branded terms. So, should I be bidding on my own branded keywords? Well, the answer to that is normally no if nobody else is bidding on it, but yes if someone is bidding on your branded terms. It's a similar sort of thing. I think that when it's non-branded phrases, you're more likely to get your click stolen, in inverted commas, by a competitor. I think the answer to that is test it. I would be very reserved based off my experience about turning off non-branded keywords from an AdWords perspective, just because I'm ranking for it in position 1 or position 2 or position 0 organically.
Yeah. All right, Matthew, thank you very much for being a guest at this podcast. We've heard a lot of interesting things. I will add your presentation to the show notes. That means if people visit timeformarketing.com and look at the podcast number 11, they will be able to follow your presentation and find everything else that you didn't have the time to mention in the presentation. How bad is Black Friday for you? Did I disturb you in the worst week of the year, or is it not that bad for you?
So far, not too bad. I mean, one year, I think it was about 2 years ago, we actually broke a client's website because of the traffic that was being generated through it, which was kind of a good and a bad thing. Yeah, no, I think a lot of the stores at the moment are starting their Black Friday sales a little bit earlier to try and avoid the rush, on the site's infrastructure and all that sort of stuff. But maybe ask me that on Friday, and I'll tell you how.
All right. Thank you very much again for being a guest here. I think that's the time when you can say goodbye.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you very much, Peter. If anyone's got any questions or anything, feel free to give me a shout on Twitter. My handle's Matthew_JK. Just thanks once again for having me on.
All right. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Peter. Bye-bye.